So the first two questions, what's your purpose? Why are you here? The second question, what are your God-given talents? What do you do that moves the needle? What do you do that's impacting for other people and that ultimately fulfills on your purpose? And you and I both know, what do? You stop doing the stuff that isn't on that list and you spend more time doing what was on that list. And that's exactly what Mike was saying to me. Then he asked me, I think one of the most important questions for me at that time. He said, Tom, they all got very clear on their values and specifically what they value. And I remember looking at him and saying, I came from a divorced family. I feel like I had like two sets of values, sort of my mom's side and then, my dad's side, and, no right or wrong in that statement, but, they were yin and yang, very different. So I said, I kind of feel pulled in that area. And he said, and he starts laughing and he said, no, Tom, those are your parents' values. What do you value? And I was like, oh, and he's like, I'm asking you to consciously list out the things that matter most to you. Truth, integrity, wisdom, friendship, love, connection. And I start listing all these things out and I'm like, yeah, right. And success, ambition, like, you could imagine, right? If you actually consciously said, I am a sum total of the sort of experiences that I had, right? The time I had with my parents, or maybe in the military, or maybe a super impactful mentor, or an uncle, an aunt, a teacher who really moved the needle and helped shape who you are. He said, Tom, all of that is great, but I'm asking you to decide, what do you value? Knowing what you know now, what truly matters? And, I started writing and writing and writing. And then I said, wait a minute, but tell me why. And he said, it goes back to the first question. You're going to get inundated. You, my friend, listen to this right now. You know this. You get inundated with inputs, right? Call it stimulus response, right? Stimulus response. And one of my mentors, which we should do a whole show on, Bill Mitchell, would say to me all the time, right? The most successful people on the planet are the ones that take the split second moment to think in between stimulus and response. Stimulus and response, right? Something happens, we react. Or something happens, a request comes in, a request for time, a request for a meeting, an idea, something you might want to, add into your business. And what Mike said was, you need to stop and reflect and say, how does this fit into my values? Like, is it in alignment with my desires and what I hold to be true and real for me? It was so powerful. He said, Tom, the vast majority of people struggle to make good decisions. And he said, the reason why most people can't make decisions, first of all, they're not clear on where they're going. So they're very easily swayed to go in whatever direction sounds good at the time, or the person or situation or circumstances might be pushing them in that direction. He said, but when you know where you're going and you're clear on what you value, things could get thrown at you every single day and you can say no and yes with ease because you know your vision and you know what you stand for. You know what you value. So I hope as you're listening to this, you're thinking this not just a podcast that may be in the car and, man, I hope you're not I hope you're not on the treadmill running right now, because this is specifically designed to be a little more heavier conversation. Like, this is where power comes from. This is where freedom comes from. This is where peace of mind comes from. This is where, in the face of adversity and upset and challenge, I can stay calm and peaceful and have a knowing in my life. Like, not take stuff so damn personally or ever take it personally, because I know why I'm here. I know what I'm really good at, and I know what I value. Can you get that? Like, can you get the sort of emotional connection of taking the time to answer those three and really taking the time to then ingrain it in, which means you operationalize around it, right? It's in your journal. It's on your bathroom mirror. You create a vision board about your vision and your purpose. You start to operationalize around your God-given talents, and you stop doing the stuff that sucks your energy away, but instead it's the stuff that moves the needle, that impacts others, that's in alignment with your purpose. And all of a sudden you get into that flow state that you hear athletes and rock star salespeople and entrepreneurs and creatives talk about, like this, oh my God, like 10 hours just went by. It was magical, right? Didn't even feel like work, that flow state, right? And then you take the time to list out the things that that you value the most. And if you know the exercise, Tony Robbins did an excellent job. I forget which book this was in or which audio program I listened to, where he said the next step is, it was in this value conversation, value elicitation specifically, what's important to you about life, success, business, and you list it all out. Then he said, you should do a value ranking, right? Do I value this one or that one? And you move it up the needle, right? You move it up the list. And what you want to do is ultimately value rank all of your values so you understand what is your number one value, the number one guiding principle that governs your life, and number 2 and number 3 and number 4 and number 5, all the way down to maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, right? This exercise is so powerful. And yet remember I said to you, right, that your whole life, your whole experience, your memories, your impact on this planet in a short or long period of time ultimately comes down to the quality of the questions that you ask and your answers. What's your purpose? Why are you here? What are your God-given talents? What do you value? Then he hit me with the question that really helped for me codify number 1. He said, Tom, the fourth thing that they all got clear on is, he said, it's 20 years from now. How is the world experiencing you? And I remember when he asked that question, because we've all heard hey, it's 5 years from now, if it's as good as it could be, what would you do? What would you have? What would it look like? But there was just something about the order of the questions that he was giving me, right? Like he was taking me on this journey, right? He couldn't have just started with that one, right? I needed to think about my purpose. I needed to think about my talents and how do you optimize that and really unleash your abilities? And then what do you value so you make good decisions? So you say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things and stay the course. Then he said, so then what is the course? It's 20 years from now. How is the world going to experience you? And the question it was almost as if I was given permission to write out exactly how I wanted it to be. Now, I had been goal setting my entire adult life. From 18 on, I was setting goals. And, trained classically, Brian Tracy, one of my first coaches, Robert Stover, and, all these amazing, men and women, Teresa Jabor, et cetera, that helped, really, give me the tools and the resources I need to be a goal setting machine. But it was something about the way he said it. It's 20 years from now. How is the world experiencing you? He didn't say to me, what do you have? He didn't say, tell me about the stuff. He said, how is the world experiencing you? And what's the impact you're making? And he just kept looking at me like what's going to be your dent on the planet? And I remember when he said dent on the planet, I was like, wow, Mike, that I don't know, man. I don't know if what I do is that big. And he said, Tom, you can dent the planet by cleaning your room today. You can dent the planet by smiling at a stranger today. You can dent the planet by cleaning up your own backyard and front yard and showing everybody else in the neighborhood what it could look like. He said, I'm not saying you're going to change the world. You're going to change your world. And I was like, oh, got it. That really connected because I was nervous, right? Really? How's the world experiencing me? I'm like, I don't want to do anything stupid and crazy and horrible because certainly those people get remembered and it's kind of hard to do something really big and meaningful in my mind that would impact and shape the world. And I took that on like it was too much, and he calmed me down and said, no, man, it could be something as simple as, how do your children experience you 20 years from now? And I was like, oh my goodness, right? My kids would be in their 20s. That's insane, right? So that question, you deciding 20 years out, your legacy, your impact, the relationships, right? The people you're close to, right? Your health, your wealth, right? And your lifestyle. And yeah, how you got there. It was the first time in my life where I got really clear on the kind of man I wanted to be, right? The kind of legacy I wanted, the impact I wanted to make, how I wanted to treat people, how I wanted to leave every person I had met with, right? And it really shaped me And yeah, of course, I wrote, hey, I want to have a business that looks like this, and I want to travel like this, and I want to experience joy and happiness and love with my wife and my children. Like, I was writing all that stuff and more. But it was the first time that I actually said, hey, it's December 31st, 20 years in the future. 2023, right, would have been the time. Think about that, because here we are in 2019. Man, that was a long time ago, but it feels like yesterday. There's just simply power, my friend, in deciding how you want it to be. Taking the time to create almost like a roadmap for your life, right? And instead of starting it at here I am, now will I end up there? You actually start at the pot of gold and work your way backwards, right? So, hey, I've been married now for, 23 years or whatever the number is, and my children are this age, or hey, I finally got married, or I finally left him or her and found the true love of my life, whatever it is, right? You get to decide how you want it to be. The power, though, is in taking the time to write it out.